Hello, I'm Dr. Rohit Chakor, and today we will discuss about the fracture in the proximal femur, namely fracture neck of femur and intertrochanteric fractures. So how you decide which fracture is what? So proximal femur fractures are subdivided into fracture of the femoral head, intracapsular fractures and extracapsular fractures. In femoral head, we may get a fracture of the head portion, so it might be osteochondral or subchondral. In intracapsular fractures, these comprise of the fracture neck of femur. So subclassified as subcapital fractures, transcervical fractures and basicervical fractures. Whereas extracapsular fractures are the intertrochanteric fractures, which also include greater trochanteric fracture, lesser trochanteric fracture and subtrochanteric fracture. Relevant anatomy related to the proximal femur is the red portion you can see is the head. So any fracture in this area is the head fractures. The neck area you can see is yellow, where you can get the neck of femur fractures. At the intertrochanteric line you can see there is an attachment for the capsule. So all fractures proximal to the attachment, that is proximal to the intertrochanteric line, are called as intracapsular fractures, whereas the fractures distal to that line are called as extracapsular. So all intertrochanteric fractures come under extracapsular fractures. We also have isolated fractures of the greater trochanter and lesser trochanter. So moving further, relevant anatomy of the hip joint. As you can see, the femoral neck, lesser trochanter, greater trochanter, femoral head and the intertrochanteric line. The joint formed of hip joint is a synovial type of joint with wide range of rotational motion and stability. The stability is conferred by its ball and deep socket configuration, the acetabular labrum, a strong joint capsule, articular cartilage and surrounding muscle. So if there is a very high velocity trauma or the force is so high which causes a break into the junction of femoral neck and head, we get a subcapital neck fracture. Similarly, we can also get a transcervical neck femur fracture, and then at the base of the neck near the intertrochanteric line we get a intertrochanteric fracture. A fracture below the lesser trochanter is called as a subtrochanteric fracture. Isolated fracture of the greater trochanter would be because of the avulsion of abductor muscles, and you may get avulsion from the iliopsoas muscle, which is called as fracture of lesser trochanter. Arterial supply. Very important to know the arterial supply of the proximal femur, because this depends upon the arteries which may get injured during the trauma, and that may lead to a vascular necrosis. So extracapsular articular ring is located at the base of femoral neck near the intertrochanteric line. The most important blood supply is from the medial femoral circumflex artery, and less amount is coming from the lateral femoral circumflex artery. Then we get the ascending cervical branches of the extracapsular arterial ring on the surface of the femoral neck, which are called as the retinacular arteries. Then we also have a small negligible blood supply coming from the ligamentum teres artery, and also some supply coming from the nutritional artery. So as you can see here, there is an extracapsular ring near the intertrochanteric line coming from the deep femoral artery or the profunda femori vessels. Here we get medial circumflex as well as lateral circumflex forming a arterial ring which perpendicularly branch to give the retinacular branches in the neck. So any injury into the capsule would lead to laceration of these vessels, and that might lead to complications such as non-union and vascular necrosis. So here you can see these retinacular vessels are going anteriorly and posteriorly as well as inferiorly, whereas there is a foveolar artery or the artery of ligamentum teres, a branch of obturator artery which is rudimentary, and the blood supply is important in children. So coming to the topic, femoral neck fracture. This is a fracture through the intracapsular part of the femoral neck and is usually referred by the term femoral neck fracture. Another term is intracapsular proximal femoral fracture. About 80% of these fractures are displaced. So what are the risk factors for this fracture to occur? Most important is the aging population. Women are more prone than men because of osteoporosis, more commonly seen in white population than black. United States has highest incidence of hip fracture rates worldwide, and according to the finances, this is the most expensive fracture to treat on per person basis. So again, relevant anatomy related to the fracture. The neck connects the head with the shaft and is about 3.7 centimeter long. It makes an angle with the shaft of 130 plus or minus 7 degrees. The angle is less in female due to the wider pelvis. It is strengthened by the calcar femoral, which is a bony thickening along its concavity. So as you can see, there is a bony thickening along the inferior border near the lesser trochanter, which is called as calcar. Mechanism of injury to have this fracture is low energy fall in older patients. The neck being the weakest link fractures often and gives way. So these fractures are more common in elderly with a trivial fall. A direct fall onto the greater trochanter, which is called as valgus impaction, or forced external rotation of the lower extremity impinges an osteoporotic neck into the posterior lip of acetabulum, resulting in posterior comminution. There might be indirect muscle forces acting which overwhelm the strength of the femoral neck. In young patients, we may get these fractures following high energy trauma such as motor vehicle accident or fall from significant height. Associated injuries which can be seen in fracture neck of femur is femoral shaft fractures. 6 to 9% of associated femoral neck fractures. We can treat the femoral neck fracture first, followed by the shaft fracture. Prognosis in this case is mortality is quite high, 25 to 30% at 1 year, higher than the vertebral compression fracture. So these fractures usually are classified anatomically as we have discussed before. It may be classified according to the Garden classification and according to the Powell classification. We will discuss this in detail. So Garden classification we divide into stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. Stage 1 is undisplaced incomplete fracture including valgus impacted fracture. In stage 2, this is complete fracture but undisplaced. Stage 3, there is a displacement but which is incomplete, but the fracture is complete. Stage 4, it is completely displaced fracture. So normally if you see the trabeculae, the break in continuity of the trabeculae without complete breakage is grade 1. There is complete break in continuity again but undisplaced fracture is stage 2. In stage 3, there is a break in continuity of the trabeculae, and in stage 4 there is a break in continuity of the trabeculae and displacement. A simplified Garden classification can be described as grade 1 and 2 as non-displaced fracture, and in displaced it is grade 3 and 4. This is having a lot of limitations, Garden's classification. So we move further with Powell classification. In this, the classification is based on the angle of fracture from the horizontal. So what you can see is angle made or subtended by the fracture line with the horizontal describes the prognosis of the fracture. So type 1 is 30 degrees, type 2 is up to 50 degrees and type 3 is more of a vertical fracture, that is 70 degrees. So type 1 is more stable, as you can see. Type 2 is most common, 30 to 50 degrees of angulation, angle made by the fracture with the horizontal is common. Type 3 is most unstable with highest risk of non-union and avascular necrosis. This classification better categorizes stability than the Gardner's classification. Type 3 fracture complicated by non-union may require intertrochanteric osteotomy to reorient the fracture line to a more type 1 stable angle. So here you can see the fracture line in type 1, it is more or less 30 degrees. In second it is 30 to 50, and in third it is more than 50 to 70. So anatomical classification is again subcapital, transcervical and basicervical. Symptoms: the presentation of these patients would be impacted and stress fractures would have slight pain in the groin or pain referred along the medial side of the thigh and knee. In displaced fracture, patient would be not able to bear weight and pain would be in entire hip region. On physical examination, there would be no obvious clinical deformity in impacted and stress fracture, minor discomfort with active or passive range of motion, muscle spasm at extremes of motion, and pain would be with percussion over greater trochanter. Whereas in displaced fractures, the leg is in external rotation and abduction with slight shortening. Radiology, we see the X-rays which we obtain the recommended views as AP pelvis and cross table lateral with full length femur film of the same side. We can also take an tractional internal rotation AP view, which is best for defining the fracture type. So Gardner's classification is the classification based on the X-ray AP pelvis. We can also do CT, which is helpful in determining displacement and degree of comminution in some patients. MRI is only helpful to rule out occult fracture, but not helpful in reliably assessing viability of the femoral head after the fracture. We can do bone scan, which is again helpful to rule out occult fracture, but not a very useful tool for assessing viability of femoral head after the fracture. Duplex scanning is not indicated unless we suspect DVT or if delayed presentation to hospital after hip fracture. Treatment would depend upon the classification. So if it is Gardner's type 1, that is valgus impacted, non-displaced, incomplete, then we define the treatment according to the age. If patient is less than 60 years, we give a chance for the bone to heal. So this healing would be with the help of osteosynthesis, which is done by close reduction with cancellous screw fixation. If patient is more than 60 years physiologically as well as patient is osteoporotic, then we go for the prosthetic replacement. In Gardner type 2, if patient is less than 60 years, we prefer the fixation, which is done by the cancellous screw fixation. More than 60, again hip replacement. Type 3 is a displaced fracture. If less than 60 years, we have to change the angle to more accommodative angle. So we have to do osteotomy with dynamic hip screw fixation, or we may use a recent implant, which is the trochanteric femoral nail. If more than 60 years, then option remains joint replacement. In Gardner type 4, again less than 60, we go for the fixation. More than 60, prosthetic replacement. So as here you can see, in young patient we are fixing the head with CC screws, which are the percutaneous cancellous screws, whereas in age more than 60 we have to do a joint replacement. It might be a partial hip replacement or complete or total hip replacement. So dynamic hip screw is a very important device. This is usually used in fixation of the extracapsular fractures. It can be used for both stable and unstable fracture patterns. The plate angle is variable. It may be from 130 degrees to 150 degrees. It has to be positioned centrally in the femoral head in both AP and lateral views. So use of radiological views is required intraoperatively to know the exact position. We can also use the trochanteric femoral nail such as seen in the X-ray. This is done by me, where you can see the principle remains the same. We use a derotation screw, a derotation bolt, and we also use a compression screw, compression bolt, and we use an interlocking device, and interlocking is done by the distal screw. We can also do hip replacement surgery or arthroplasty in patients who have poor bone stock, who are osteoporotic, who have comminuted fractures, and who have less prognosis to survive the surgery. So we can do a joint replacement. In this we have a bipolar hip replacement, which is either a hemiarthroplasty, where the most common implant used is Austin Moore's prosthesis. Other is the total hip replacement, where we also assess the acetabulum and then replace the acetabulum as well as the femoral neck with a hip prosthesis. So in this X-ray you can see a total hip arthroplasty is done for the fractured neck of femur patient, and as you can see the angle measurement and the varus is restored, and patient would be having near normal range of motion and gait. Complications for this is, for fractured neck of femur, is thromboembolism. This is the leading cause of death within first 7 days, seen in 40% of patients. The next complication is non-union, and the last and the delayed complication is avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis can be seen irrespective of fixation, irrespective of the fracture. It is idiopathic and we cannot prognose when we can get avascular necrosis. Non-union. So what is non-union? Non-union is a failure of union of the fracture which still occurs due to improper reduction or imperfect internal fixation. Non-union rate in fractured neck of femur is 85 to 95%. If there is no radiological evidence of healing taking place between 6 to 12 months at treatment on a X-ray, then it is declared as a non-union. So you have to wait till a long period of time to decide whether this is a delayed union or a non-union. Causes of non-union would be inaccurate reduction, poor internal fixation, avascularity of the femoral head. In all these cases, it may lead to non-union, shortening, and then difficulty in bearing weight. So clinical features would include unable to bear weight on the affected side. Because of this, there would be muscle wasting on the same side, and it might lead to some sort of shortening, minimal shortening of the affected lower limb. Next complication is avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis of femoral head is an unpredictable complication met with after any type of internal fixation. The patient presents with pain in the hip and limping. Limitation of all movements of hip occurs with muscle spasm. X-ray would show patchy areas of increased density, which is suggestive of sclerosis and loss of vascularity. Treatment in early stages is by rest, traction, weight relieving caliper, or when indicated we do the osteotomy or replacement arthroplasty. Then moving ahead with the next topic, which is intertrochanteric fractures. So as we know, intertrochanteric fractures are the extracapsular fractures which occur between the greater trochanter, where the gluteus medius and minimus muscles, which are the abductors of the hip, are attached. The lesser trochanter is where the iliopsoas is attached. So in between these two bony landmarks if the fracture line is there, we get to call it as intertrochanteric fractures. Usually it is an extracapsular fracture seen in elderly osteoporotic patient, women in 8th decade. They unite easily as it is extracapsular and cancellous area of bone, so there would be no non-union seen or may be seen rarely. It also never causes a vascular necrosis. So in anatomy, what we have to know is the intertrochanteric line. This is the anterior ridge between greater and lesser trochanters, extracapsular transition between femoral neck and shaft, and the mechanism of injury is again trivial fall. So this intertrochanteric line is usually the fracture line. This is the line where the capsule gets attached. So because of the overwhelming forces of the muscle at the greater trochanter and lesser trochanter, as well as the force acting due to the fall, would result in the breaking of the weakest link, which is the position of the intertrochanteric fracture. In younger individuals, it's because of the high velocity trauma, such as motor vehicle accident or fall from height. In elderly, it is a trivial trauma. Now we have to classify these fractures so that we can decide upon the best line of treatment for these fractures. So useful for deciding stability and treatment of intertrochanteric fractures, we have Evans classification. Also, in some cases we get reverse obliquity fractures which are unstable and which cannot be fixed with the help of the dynamic hip screw or DHS. So in these cases we have to treat these fractures such as subtrochanteric fractures by using intramedullary device. So how we classify intertrochanteric fractures is, type 1 is undisplaced two-part fracture. You can see two part of the bone. One is proximal fracture fragment and the other is distal fragment. Type 2 is a displaced two-part fracture. Type 3 is three-part fracture with posterolateral comminution. We see a separate piece of greater trochanter, proximal fragment and a shaft distal fragment. Type 4 is displaced three-part fracture with large posteromedial comminuted fragment. So in this case, this fracture becomes very unstable and you have to decide which implant to use and prognosis on table once you reduce the fracture. In type 5, then there is a displaced four-part fracture where you get a lot of comminution in both the trochanters. In these patients, the complaint would be similar to neck of femur, but pain would be there. There would be a marked shortening of lower limb. Patient cannot lift his or her leg. There would be a complete external rotation deformity. This external rotation deformity occurs because the Y ligament or the ligament of Bigelow is attached at the intertrochanteric line, and this is the constraint which prevents excessive external rotation deformity. So whenever there is a fracture which leads to the Y ligament of Bigelow being torn and the restraint is lost and you get external rotation deformity, there would be swelling, ecchymosis, tenderness over the greater trochanter. In displaced fractures, they usually cannot bear weight on the leg and there would be very difficult to ambulate. In undisplaced fracture, patient may be ambulatory, he may experience minimal pain. The amount of clinical deformity in patients with intertrochanteric fracture reflects the degree of fracture displacement. We would like to do X-rays for these patients, the AP view of pelvis and with the cross-table lateral view involving the proximal femur also. So in this X-ray you can see there is a displaced fracture of intertrochanteric area where there would be a line crossing from the greater trochanter into the lesser trochanter. How to manage these patients? It depends upon the completeness and stability. So we manage it according to the classification given by Evans. Risk of avascular necrosis and non-union is less than in femoral neck fractures. A basicervical fracture of femoral neck is treated like an intertrochanteric fracture. So if there is a complete fracture, a stable fracture, you can use a dynamic hip screw. If it is unstable or reverse oblique, then you have to use intramedullary device. If the fracture is incomplete, you have to ascertain whether the fracture is complete or not. You can do the MRI to see that. If incomplete and if less than 50% fracture width, potentially can treat with conservative management. If there is a risk of complete fracture occurring after weight bearing, then better to fix it. A small subset of fractures also include greater trochanteric fractures. This greater trochanter gives insertion to the hip abductors such as gluteus medius and minimus, and external rotators like piriformis, superior and inferior gemella, and obturators. Mechanism is isolated greater trochanter fracture may be related to the impaction from fall versus avulsion. So in young patients it might be because of the avulsion, because of force of the muscles. If incomplete fracture is there, you have to do MRI to assess the extent of the fracture. Mostly these fractures heal with non-operative management. If the displacement is significant, then you have to fix with a screw. That is open reduction internal fixation with a screw. Lesser trochanter fractures, again a very small subset of fractures occurring. Isolated lesser trochanteric fracture is rare. This is an attachment for the iliopsoas insertion. This may be due to avulsion fracture. In absence of any injury, isolated residual trochanter fracture is highly suspicious of an underlying malignancy. We have to obtain an MRI to assess the extent of fracture, also to evaluate the underlying malignancy. Treatment would be non-operative treatment for non-displaced fractures, and if significantly displaced, then we do the open reduction internal fixation. So here we end the lecture for today.